down into the fetal integration process. Is there anybody that would like to say anything, or are we all going to be mums the word? Oh, good. There's a few. Good. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Before you share, I'll just ask another question.
Sure.
Further to this question.
Sure.
If you're blocked in such a way that, in terms of doing the visualizations, in terms of seeing the dots, in terms of every way, just by being here, will that still get activated at some point in time?
Yes. Yes. Just because you can't see them yet, which means there's certain blockages and those things will come. You're getting frequency right now, and you are getting images that by me creating and saying, okay, see this, see this, see this. That is actually a scalar wave pattern. Okay, it sounds like words here, and it sounds like the description of images. You are still getting the scalar wave pattern in your field. It will begin making adjustments in your field by kind of like osmosis. You're in the space. You are going to be affected by the field. Yeah. And this will progressively help you to work through the blockages that are making it so you can't do inner visual and that kind of stuff. You know, it's a process. Some people can't do great inner visualization. You know, they're trying. They know they're trying to create it, but they just don't see anything. And that's very characteristic of the even early fourth strand activation. Usually you don't get real clear inner visuals until you go into sixth strand activation. So you don't have to worry about it if you don't see real crisp, clear, inner visuals when you're doing visualization or something. You just need to know they're there because you're intending them to be. And they are there. They're just not within your perceptual range of inner vision yet. Okay? So you'll be all right with it. You're still getting the benefit of it. Okay, now, I think my knee's back in order. Oop, okay.
When you were taking us through the process, at a couple of points I was already there before you got there because there were real problems with me why I'm here and stuff and things that I know that, like you said, I don't want to be here. And several people in the past 2 months who don't even know me or into any of this kind of work have actually said to me, you're not from here.
Okay, so you were getting the instructions ahead. Before I'd say them, you were getting them ahead. I've had several people, even in the Kathara Healing Workshop, say the same thing to me. I was doing that before you said that, which is good, because I'm getting the stuff through a frequency transmission, and then it downloads through me and becomes speech. Some people already have their receptors open enough where they're picking up the frequency and getting the translations before I say them. So if you happen to be seeming like you're running ahead of me and like, wait a minute, deja vu, I just heard that in my own head, or I just saw that happen, you're just picking up on the transmission that's being given, the frequency transmission. And it's very possible, as far as not being from here. Honestly, none of us are from here. Some people are less from here than others, though. When it comes to Orifeme Emerald Order, for example, they tend to be from Harmonic 4, okay? They tend to not incarnate. In fact, they only incarnate on rescue missions, usually. That's how most of the Orifeme got stuck here 210,000 years ago. It was a rescue mission went very, very wrong. And we got stuck in the densities and have been tripping over ourselves trying to put ourselves back together ever since. So there are some people that have a distinct feeling of not being from here. And it's usually people that have affiliations where most of their experience of manifestation is in higher dimensional fields, where you don't have a lot of orientation to the earth frequencies. You're not used to being in the densities. So it makes you feel like really strange in the densities, like you just really don't quite belong here, you belong someplace else.
Because it was difficult for me to go back. I can distinctly, even now, and it's always been the thing, I cannot remember. I can remember parts growing up in the park, and certain points are distinctive. But anything beyond that, before that, I really cannot recall any moments, even in consciousness. I only know things that were told to me when I was a baby in this.
Okay, that's interesting. That's something I didn't talk about, which is a possibility. When you get to the point where you can go back in your memory to a certain point and all of a sudden it stops. Like, I wasn't here before then? There's a distinct possibility you weren't. And that gets into things like soul braiding and walking in. There are some people who, because they're a higher consciousness coming in, will have a difficult time coming into the fetal pattern that was chosen because the fetal pattern doesn't have a high enough oscillation rate. So they will get usually a part of their own solar oversoul matrix to come in, do a very short half incarnation, get the body to a certain point of vibration, and then they will come in. And their memory will pick up, usually, unless they've been in overshadow the whole time. Then the memory would pick up at the point where you came into the body. So it's a possibility with that type of not being able to go back to that point that somebody else did fetal integration, and you came in after the point. At that point, I would to be able to find that out. You're best to work with your mentor that we created in the. You were there, right? Okay. So to find your own inner guidance, to find out if a walk-in has taken place or a soul break. But if you do find a point where, gee, I can remember to age 2, but boy, it's just blank slate after that, nothing. It's very possible you just weren't here before that point. And that's what, modern medicine, people hear this, and psychiatry, and they think I'm absolutely off the wall. But they don't remember their fetal integration process. Because if they did, it would make perfect sense. So, and hopefully at some point we can, I would like to get this out into the psychiatric community before they become a menace to us. Not to us, we're going to know better. But to those poor people out there who are going to go into DNA activations and start getting their fourth dimensional perceptions and start remembering their incarnational stuff, they're going to go run into shrinks because they're going to think they're going crazy, and they're going to end up putting them on drugs. And they're going to tell them they are crazy, when really what's happening is the psychiatric paradigm is not large enough to deal with what's happening with human evolution. So hopefully we can be a part of healing in that if we teach and let others know that there are alternatives to running to a doctor for drugs. And don't be so scared if you start to see things. And if you start to hear inner voices, it doesn't mean you're crazy, necessarily. We need to spread this word. Okay, I have another question over here. Well, it can, but it usually doesn't.
Just a piece to share with you on that. There's a physician, a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Lee Sinella, who has been through the whole Kundalini experience, and he has identified psychosis or transcendence, and he has written a wonderful book helping other physicians to really understand whether people are really having a psychotic experience or a transcendent experience.
Right.
And the one thing he's very strong with is to be careful with medication, because you can actually, if it is a transcendent experience, really create harm to that person's spiritual evolution.
Yes. I'm glad there's a book out there that some doctor has finally got a Kundalini activation and gone into transcendence and come back to tell the other doctors that, it isn't crazy after all. I'm a doctor. You have to listen to me. Believe me. I'm glad that exists out there. Okay. Okay, that's good. So there are other people that are being guided to bring this knowledge into the medical professions, as far as there is a difference between transcendence and psychosis. There is a difference between hearing the inner chatter of your fragmented personalities that are down there in your subconscious, which we all have pieces of, and hearing the guidance of your higher self. And there's a difference between those two things and hearing something you don't want to hear that's trying to infiltrate your astral field to pretend it's your director because it wants your body. So there's a lot of things that psychology hasn't learned, but we're learning, so we'll be better at being able to identify it. Is there another question? I think I remember. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in relation to her question, maybe you can help me with this. I find that in doing these exercises, a lot of times I have a challenge seeing these things, or I guess I'm in my head and I'm like working, I'm saying, well, now what does this look like? Am I seeing it right? It's like I'm doing a right brain exercise, but I'm in my left brain when I'm trying to do it. And, I'm trying to analyze, and I'm thinking, I'm saying, is this right? And when she said, see 8 of them. Is this what they look like? Am I seeing it right? Is it supposed to stand up this way, or does it go down that way? And I'm doing all of this and trying to visualize or see whatever it is.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I bet there's a lot of people who do that, who catch themselves doing that. The mind's going, yeah, but okay, is this right? And by that time you missed 3 steps, and like, where am I? Wait a minute. Okay, come back. You summed it up well of being in the wrong brain space. We're trying to work with the intuitive stuff here. With that's a propensity to kind of overanalyze things, which is usually somebody that really wants to make sure they're right before they commit to anything. It usually is part of their structure, where they're going to get this. It's a cogitation thing. Who's wonderful at that is my husband, Phil. He's very, very good at absolutely making sure every angle of something is covered round and round and round and round. And it gets to the point where, but you could have been on step C by now, but you're too worried about getting A absolutely perfect. Yeah. Trust is the healing element to this, where you learn to say, seems like this, let's run with it. You learn to trust. If you're imaging a star, for instance, don't ask, is that the right star so much? I say, I trust because I see it, that my higher self is showing me the right way to do this for me. You need to surrender the trust factor. And you also can do a little trick where instead of seeing images and hearing words, try to switch into a level of perception called cellular telepathy, where you just begin to read feeling vibration. You can literally shift into feeling the transmissions of energy that are coming out beneath the words here. Forget the words. It doesn't matter if you remember a darn thing I said. If you can begin to feel the frequency of the energies that's just coming off the front of the stage here and from the people around you with this, you will pull in and your system will do the stuff even if it's bypassing your logical conscious mind. It will still create the same effects, and it will help you to get back to the point where you don't get in your mind's way as much. So sometimes switching into a different perceptual mode will help break that kind of habitual pattern of over-processing in one perceptual mode. Simply switch to, remember, this is all energy. And if you could totally tune me out, sing a song to yourself in your head, distract your mind. Get it off what I'm saying, but try to open up the energy centers here and lean the energy here toward the stage, just to start feeling some frequency moving. You'll be expanding your field out enough to pick up the frequencies, and they will affect you anyway, and you'll get yourself out of your headspace for a little while. And that can help. That can help that problem of am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? You need to learn to trust yourself. That's what it comes down to for all of us. If we're going to be forerunners of this incredible paradigm that most people have never ever heard of here, except maybe 200,000 years ago, and they don't remember, we need to realize there's part of ourselves that already knows how it works. There's part of ourselves that knows what the right thing to do is in any moment. And we need to start learning to say, well, maybe I don't get it right now. I surrender. I will give it to that part of myself that already knows, my eternal self, my master inside. And my master is nobody but me. You can have gurus, and you can have people that will help you. You can have teachers. You can have lots of support systems. But the most important thing is to never, ever give your power to anybody but your own self on each level, and your own self in connection directly to Source. There's no outside authority, or even inner plane authority, no matter how grand they may be, or how great holograms they can create with wild wings and take you on journeys and stuff. Both sides can do that. Learn to respect your own majesty and realize that you have an ascended master. Right now, in this moment, there's a level of you that's an ascended master. The part that never even left the frequency bands that are part of the ascended mastery levels. Time is simultaneous. Your original point of full expansion into Source before you individuated is just as real right now as your little individuated point here. You need to trust that level, and it will guide you through all this stuff. This will help you to open to it. Okay, another question? Then I'm gonna...
Okay, the experience, if you kind of like the waiting so long because I can't remember it.
Another thing that happens.
There's a part where we're traveling or going down or up. My person felt like I was encased in something, like stiff, and I really wanted to be free, and I really wanted to change my mind, and I really didn't want to do this.
Right.
And it was very dark, but that feeling was concentrated in my abdomen.
Okay.
And so I kind of heard, like, this is where all your digestion problems are from, breathing, respiratory issues, like, oh, this is where it all started, that you kind of decided you didn't want to do this anymore, and you took it in right in the digestion.
Right.
And that's where I felt it. So when you said push away the energy,
yep.
Well, what was I pushing away?
You were pushing away. You were pushing away the when we dig up these imprints from in those 8 cells, we're firing miasms, which are those little buildups of antiparticles that are stuck in our particle fields. we're breaking them up and making them release their holographic pattern, which kind of comes out in a gooky, yucky energy that doesn't necessarily have pictures, dates, and times on it. It just kind of hangs in the field. When we're clearing and pushing the energy out, we're taking that gook that we just released from the stuff where you're getting information already on what you felt there, where it was. There's gook behind that was stuck in your, in crystallized form. You release the crystals. You're pushing that energy out into your outer layers of the auric field where your higher levels of self can transmute them for you. So you're getting them away from your immediate astral level body and your physical level body so they don't make you sick, so they don't make you feel yucky, that kind of thing.
And at the same time, like I really wanted to make a lot of noise. Okay, there's a lot of people here.
Someday we'll have a retreat center where we can have like a silent room where we can all go, yeah.
To do like real heavy release breathing.
Yes.
But then, there were people who
I know.
other people heard. But that was mild and quiet. That was a tame control.
Right.
Breathing. That was not what needed to take
That, right. But what's wonderful, do you see how your system knew what needed to take place to finish that healing? It knew it needed to maybe scream and breathe hard and do all sorts of wild stuff. Your systems, all of your systems, will know how to do this. And I knew everybody was going to say, okay, yeah, we'll release our emotional bodies, but of course we always have to be polite, and, we're in a lot of people, and yeah, right. We actually did very good with letting the emotional body go to a degree, but that is a very natural and very healthy response, because usually when you start to get into releasing the fetal imprint, you may literally bounce off walls. If you really let it go, it may come out in movement. You know how people like to do free dance and that kind of stuff because it redistributes energy in the system? You may find pounding pillows or throwing things against walls or bopping those styrofoam things around, just flailing, just like an infant would, to clear itself and to rebalance itself. You may find those as natural responses to releasing the fetal imprint. And when you flow with them, they will turn into something else. If you feel like crying and you cry for a while, that may turn into anger. That may turn into physical desire to physically do stuff, push at something, attack something, rip that pillow apart, that kind of thing. All of these impulses are coming out of releasing the fetal imprint. Someday, if we could ever afford it, I'm hoping, and what the Guardians want, is to have a retreat center where part of what we can do is deep emotional release work, where we can use the breathing patterns. There are certain different patterns of panting and those kind of things that will help release certain levels of the miasmic imprint, where there's a place to scream where nobody's going to hear you if you need it, except somebody working with you where it's okay. So it's very natural to have that, and it's good that you noticed that in yourself. Did anybody else notice you wanted to do stuff like that, but you just kind of said, well, not here, I got 2 or 3, okay. Couple people noticed that, yeah.
But there was something else that took place that I thought was important, which was
this is a question. Processing. Like, I know with the New Age movement now,
Yes.
you don't want to process. From what I understand, you want because from what I understand, we've processed so much. Many of us have had so many incarnations. It's like, okay, we process, now we know we're stuck. Now let's get on with wherever it is we're supposed to be doing besides processing.
Right.
So there's a resistance to the processing part that I needed to understand and get clear about. That was one part. The other part was that when you have family and family lineages that have trauma in it,
Right.
and somebody's taking you to the trauma, whatever, through the meditation, whatever, you're going to get to this, because you already know, whatever,
Right, you already know
if
it's
you read
there.
a book or whatever, you already know that particular line has a whole lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get to that issue, the anger or whatever you're feeling, it seems like you never release it. How many of these have you done? So how many more you have to do to release it is the point.
The answer to that
You
was,
already know that you've been there, you did this, you felt this.
right.
Supposedly the last workshop you went to, they said you released it. And, it's like, okay.
Well, we release stuff. There is stuff upon stuff upon stuff stuck in our fields. Okay. This is why the Guardians are getting into reversing the miasmic core, which is going back to the core point where it first occurred and reversing the polarity on the whole onion, going to the seed and turning it inside out. Because you can spend the next 500 years processing your karma from the last 200,000, trying to figure out what it is, up-level it, look at it, process the issue. That's why we're being taught to deal with the karmic imprint as the miasmic imprint, which is its real manifestation in wave form. Forget what the holographic content is. We're learning to process it as energy and clear it out. And it comes down to a simple processing where if we can recognize that we have our Cathara grid in the body, we have our Huva body scalar grid structures, part of those will have blockages in them that are clusters of miasmic crystals. It comes down to a simple process of clearing out the layers of the crystal clusters and getting them out of the Huva bodies and the Cathara grid. Simple. We don't have to rehash it over and over and over again. But sometimes we need to trip the emotional body enough to allow the miasm to release. Okay, when we go in to feeling the feelings we know we don't want to feel because we know they're already there, if those feelings are still there, we haven't released it. There's a miasm behind them. So by allowing those feelings to process and come up, you can trigger the rest of the miasmic pattern to open into waveform, into your field. You could really work yourself into a tizzy if you try to follow the emotion step by step. But if you then take it and work with it as energy to clear it out and move it from the field, you're doing an energy change to yourself right there. You are processing, but you're processing in a way where you don't have to analyze the heck out of everything you're processing. You don't have to look at that issue anymore. You just have to release the imprint of the energy and move that energy away from you. Time for the next thing. And you also got to realize we are in a process here, in an ascension cycle, Stargate cycle, that this is where it all comes to a head. It's been 200,000 years since this happened. So we have a tremendous amount of mess in our morphogenetic field. That's why these type of healing techniques will work much better than trying to go through past life therapy, you know?
I also felt like I wasn't just doing mine.
Okay.
I felt like I was doing a whole lot of other people's.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. And
Interesting.
I was like, okay, there's too many people.
You were experiencing
That it wasn't just mine that was being worked through. I was doing it for others. For all others. Right. Almost like the scream that I wanted to do was my scream, yes. But then it was all the screams of the people who didn't want to scream.
That's right. All the screams of the people who wouldn't let it out were trying to come into you.
No, you're not going to do this to me today.
Right,
I'm
right.
not going to be the one standing here screaming for everybody.
You know, it's
Okay. So
that is very
so all of
common.
That, in that moment that you it's that only moment.
Yeah.
Like I can't
I
describe
know.
that high that happens to me. But
I
you have to
know what you're talking about with that.
No, I'm not
Okay,
doing that.
with the symbiotic relationship to the other fields in the room. Some people have a very natural inclination to play Hoover vacuum cleaner. Okay? And I know because I'm one of them. My field walks through a room and it absorbs everything in sight and cleans it up and throws it back out nice and clean and shiny. And believe me, that can be hard to process. When we start to go into higher frequency and higher identity integration, one of the things we do need to learn is to shut down our fields when it's time to do that. You know, where we get to say, no, I'm not going to pull that in right now. I don't need to play vacuum cleaner right now. But I think what you were feeling was you must hold your fields naturally in a state of vacuum, where you probably have a soul contract to do that, to, you know, do some mild cleaning as you pass through reality fields. We all have the capacity to do it, but some people have it turned on more than others. So you don't have to be afraid of that, but you need to ask yourself, what do I do with my fields when I'm just around other people? Do I block them down this way? Or do I just kind of hang there and seem to move through them, like some part of me just moves through them? And when I go into a crowd, do I feel really tired afterward? Do I get like really drained for no reason? Or if somebody's upset like 3 lines over, and I walk out of a building, you know, seeing that and didn't affect me, half hour later, I'm really upset, and I can't figure out why. You just absorb the pattern, right? We can learn to modulate our fields. One of the things I do, and I learned this as a survival skill in walking through the streets of New York, trying to get here, especially around Christmas when they were like, you know, shoulder to shoulder deep traffic jams on foot. I put down my Merkaba. I put down a spiral of energy, very, very thick, just energy, letting it move. Anything that was of higher vibration was welcome to come through, but anything unstable was not permitted to move through my field. I put my spiral of energy coming down this way with the tip there, and going into the ground. Then I put in the Earth's core, the reverse one, coming up this way. And I literally put myself inside of the image of the star tetrahedron, or the Merkaba star. And I've had some amazing results. I haven't tried it in parking spaces yet. But I have put the field down and had really weird stuff happen, like people part. To let me walk through. And they didn't even see me. They just happened to move. It was like, gee, did we do that? So it also protects my field from absorbing all of their emotional bodies. We used to have a terrible time in childhood with this body because it's very, very sensitive. Put it in like a grade school setting, and it was processing all the emotional body nonsense of all the kids in the room. And by halfway through the day, totally burned out, just needed to sleep. So we can learn to protect ourselves and our children. If we have children or know people with children, and they seem to go into like a lot of rebel stuff, or if they're having issues with school, sometimes the issues with school are actually oversaturation of energy fields. And if those children can be taught simply to put themselves inside of a Merkaba star, you can call it what you want to, but tell them it's to, strengthen their energies and make them stronger, and kind of like make a story up about it, put some characters in it, and make it a spaceship from someplace, I don't care. Get it across to them. They can put something in their energy field as a thought idea that will block out the sponge effect that many of us are developing. Okay, now I'm not going to have time, I don't think, to take any more questions, because if this clock is right, it's like 3:37, and I guess we have the room till 4. I very much want to take you through the rest of the exercises, if you're ready to go. That last one was pretty long, and this one we're going to have a little help in doing. Azara's going to make her debut during this exercise. What I'm told is going to happen is we're going to go back to the point, the dyadic point, that we went through as the doorway in the last one, where we went through and began to access fetal integration memory. We're going to go back to that point, and we're going to travel backward through a timeline. And we're going to see many, many images flash before us so fast that they make no sense. We're going to go back to the core of the karmic imprint, the first time we entered this harmonic. And it'll be different for a lot of us, but since they've identified us as being all Orifim, it will be around the same time frame, which is about 200,000 years ago, 210,000, 216 years ago. What was special about the Orifim? When they entered originally, unlike most beings that enter here, they did not birth in. They downstepped their vibration from harmonic 4 liquid light avatars progressively down in through the densities and came down through the portals as fully grown adults. They manifested themselves. So somewhere in the imprint, if anybody's going to make it off planet into ascension this time without dropping a body, it will be those that have the original imprint of doing that process, which would be the Orifim. They have an advantage in that sense. It will be faster to activate the DNA codes more quickly because they have an original imprint because they didn't birth in. They downstepped in. So you can reverse the process and go back out. So there is a very strong potential that the death experience is something some of us may choose to do without this time. And we will choose other ways of transferring ourselves to higher dimensional fields. It will all depend on your own self and your relationship with your higher parts. Okay, now we're going to go back in to the dyadic point where fetal integration began. And at this point, Azara is going to introduce herself. And I hope you enjoy this little journey with Azara. Okay. Give us a moment. Thank you for coming this evening. I would like to introduce myself to this group of people. My name is Azara, and I know you well. It is interesting to speak in front of a group this large because usually we reserve it for very close, intimate friends, like our friends in New Jersey, in a smaller group. I want you to know that this may be a strange experience for you, but that you have heard my voice before because of who you are and because of the soul family you are connected to. Every one of you has heard my voice and has an imprint of it within your cellular code. This is why I wanted to speak to you this afternoon. I was surprising our information conduit, shall we call her. I surprised her with this, and she was very uncomfortable because she doesn't particularly like to serve as channel capacity because we don't really need to do this. However, it is interesting at times to be able to speak with you directly, because once upon a time I did speak with you directly, but the place was not here. The place was on Tara. The place was in Harmonic 2. And you knew me as a woman with deep brown skin and large green eyes. You knew me as a woman named Azara, and I was your teacher and instructor before you came here on the mission of attempting to rescue the Emente portals. So somewhere within each of you here, there's an ancient memory of a family, and there's some of you missing, but they'll come eventually. Somewhere in you, you have a memory of my face and a memory of a personal relationship with me, because at the time I was able to, as I was in a second harmonic density body, I was able to interact with you on a physical level. It has been many, many thousands of years since I have joined into the physical experience, but I follow you through time. You and the others like you. They carry the wisdom of ascension. As you move through the Cathars of France, as you move through the Jeshua periods 2,000 years ago, as you move through Akhenaten's period and then the early Pharaonic reigns, as you move from the cloister races of 200,000 years ago when you lost your temples to the Nephilim, I have watched over this, me and others like me. I am a Gestalt consciousness. I am a spokesperson for a collective that all of you know. So when you hear me, I hope a portion of you can understand that it is an old friend speaking. I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey now. It is going to be a journey back into your own incarnational matrix, your own incarnational hologram. And through this experience, you should be able to begin releasing the hologram and its hold on you. We're going to take you to the core. And as Orifim, and I will tell you, there is not one person in the room at this time who was not originally part of the Orifim pattern. Some of you, since that time, have been, let us say, altered or enhanced by other visiting groups that changed your original coding and made you something different than what you were, which is okay. But you were all originally Orifim. And the Orifim got here one way and one way only. They were sliders. They slid in just like on your TV program. And because of this, they came in at the same time frame. They came in within your time calculations, about 6 weeks of each other in various teams. So there will be affiliations between groups of you where you feel a resonance with certain groups of people in the group, smaller groups within the group, because you came in groups. And when you came in, you experienced something that no Orifim should ever have to experience. It is bad enough to lose one's temples, and it is bad enough to lose control of the stargates. But what is very bad indeed is to lose control of oneself when one is a liquid light avatar and get yourself lost and trapped within the densities for over 200,000 years. This has been a blow to all of you that you carry at the core of your karmic entry point. You will have cycles of karma that you entered from D4 and then went back and forth. But your original point of coming down from harmonic 4, that has a trauma imprint that has been repeating itself over and over and over. This is how the classic drama of the race karma, of the forces of dark and light connecting and doing their Armageddon scenarios, this started back then. And it's been holographically recreating itself through the race experience and through your experience as being part of this race. You can learn to free yourself from this situation. you can learn by reversing the core of the miasmic grid. And that's what we will take you into at this time. Okay, someone please turn the light out there. It's much too bright. Yes, it's better. Thank you. All right, now. Let us go back for a moment to a visualization we used in the last exercise. A visualization in which you pictured a circular doorway with the blue-black light on the other side. The represented the dyadic doorway that you can pass through to access the memory of the fetal integration experience. We're going to go back through this doorway, but this time we're not going to go upward to the vertical spiral that takes us into the fetal integration. Instead, we are going to go directly through into the blue-black light on a straight vector or straight line projection of consciousness. Let us see ourselves for a moment as a small speck of white light passing again through the doorway. Breathe slow and gentle. With each exhale, move a bit more forward through the doorway and out into the blue-black light. Now, before you imagine, and if you don't see it, that is okay, imagine that it is there. Imagine a spiral of energy that is multicolored rainbow energy. It is spiraling in front of you, and you are going to enter it. You are going to know as you pass through it, this is the spiral of all of the incarnations that you have lived up to this point, that have got you to this point, and that began with a seed core, a core crystal at the end of that spiral that started the whole operation in motion. Because you are the group of Orifim that are known and appreciated much in the higher dimensional fields, you will share in this room a common point of entry, original point of entry. So let us move now as a spark of white light down through the rainbow spiral, through the rainbow tunnel. Just moving toward another spark of light that appears way at the distance of the tunnel. It is getting larger and larger as we move closer and closer, till we see that it looks like a large sun at the end of the rainbow tunnel. This light at the end of the rainbow tunnel symbolizes the information that is stored on the original imprint, the original core entry point into the harmonic one. When you came in as avatars, when you came in on a rescue mission that failed, there was a sense that the Orifim, and only the Orifim, carried of a deep frustration and deep personal blame. Orifim were always hard on themselves because they were perfectionistic in certain ways. They expected high performance from themselves, and when they didn't, they took it very hard and taught themselves hard lessons. So when you sit as a consciousness in your rainbow tunnel and perceive this light at the end, know there is a part of yourself all wrapped up in there that has been a bit too hard on itself through these many, many incarnations. And it is time for that self to leave its station, to allow itself to evolve, to stop paying for what it felt it did wrong. One of the things that will help you to heal most as the beings that you are is to remove the Orifim guilt complex. It carries through for 200,000 years and amplifies the heck out of everything you do. Every time you mess up, you have to give yourself 3 lessons instead of 1 to make sure you don't ever do it again, which builds a tremendously thick miasmic pattern. So we're going to move into this spark of light now. We're going to take our spark of light, move into the larger light at the end of the rainbow tunnel. And when we get in there, imagine that a scene opens up. It is a scene with a pale blue sky and what appears to be a desert around it, with a large pyramid rising up. But it is not a pyramid like the Egypt pyramids. It is a pyramid of steps. Like the step pyramids they climb up. It is not this flat-sided ones. It is also flat-topped, because we used to have craft land there. This was the place where it began. And if you would expand the image, or imagine it's there. If you can't see it, just imagine it's there. Beyond the image of the pyramid, you will see complexes of walls and smaller pyramid structures all connected together. It was a large, large pyramid complex. That was the housing for the cloister races of the time. The time was 210,216 years ago, approximately. About 220 that we started to come in. But this is a time when we got fixated. And if we are going to heal, we need to release the fixation. Each one of us had a role to play in these times. And it doesn't matter anymore what the role was. Because what happened in the end were the guardian races needed to come in and destroy the temple complexes because they had fallen under the hands of the Nephilim and they could control the stargates with them. So we had been offered choices. We could have chosen to leave and be evacuated. Or we could have chosen to stay with our partners that we came in with, who had been taken over by the Nephilim. Many, many of us had lost partners. Many, many of us chose to stay in the densities until we could retrieve them. So we saw the destruction of the temples and the destruction of our bodies at the time as we entered the cycles of reincarnation that we were not really intended to do. As we sit with our consciousness within the middle of this sun at the end of the rainbow tunnel, there's one imprint that has repeatedly caused you problem up to this day. And that I call the imprint of final impact. There was a wide sweep of destruction of the temples in those days. Aerial attacks with phaser type technology far advanced than to what you know now. They were literally blown up and vaporized, and anything in them was also. The people who chose to stay, the Orifim who chose to stay, spent a number of days waiting, knowing the strikes were going to come. It was a final parting party because you knew that you would never quite be the same again after this experience and after entering the incarnations. It was a journey, and it would not be an easy one. Some of you cried, but eventually, right at the end, in the last hours, a silence and a peace came upon the group. They understood that eventually it would be righted. Eventually things would be set the way they were intended. And there was no more reaction to it. Right after the peace came, so did the starships. And when the starships came, the consciousness of the Orifim, many of them, were vaporized. They were fragmented. The morphogenetic fields fragmented. Some of them ended up having to evolve through animal imprints just to get up enough consciousness together to be able to enter any type of human imprint. Others managed to escape with some of their morphogenetic imprint intact. But there is a terror pattern that has stayed with them. A terror pattern that is the feeling of coming unglued at the seams as you were conscious and fully aware while your morphogenetic field literally blew apart. You could feel yourself coming unglued, losing total control of your consciousness, losing total control of your focus. It was a terror of completely becoming obliterated because you could no longer hold the focus of your attention. This has come through with the Orifim as a core imprint that messes up the Katara grid It messes up the way the Katara centers work in the body. It's a miasmic imprint. It created a fear of expansion, a need to be rigid within the developing consciousness as the Orpheum put themselves back together. Overly rigid, overly perfect, overly absolutely sure you get everything right all the time. There's an imprint where you will never ever be satisfied with yourself because of that. No matter how good you do, it's never quite good enough. You can't accept compliments particularly well, or somebody else always did it better. It's a competitive thing, a self-competitive thing. It's a fear of expansion and of letting go, because you felt yourself letting go not willingly. You felt yourselves being thrust apart, your molecules, your consciousness, your morph field being scattered from one end of harmonic one to the other, worrying if you would ever, ever assemble your parts again. So we are going to go into, just for a moment, the center of the image of the temple, the step temple. Just imagine it there if you can't see it. But imagine yourself as a consciousness, a spark of light, moving into the center of the temple. And imagine yourself for a moment, in the final moments, knowing you, an avatar, were about to fragment your pieces. Let the feeling of that move a little. Because there's a part of you that has a panic response. And you may feel it up in the 4th and 5th chakra areas. If you get that little flutter in those areas, simply breathe and let it go. And again, move it out of your field and into the outer levels to let the higher levels take care of it for you. Within this core imprint, there is an amplification of pain because Orpheum were all connected to each other. They were empathic and totally attuned to each other's fields. So when one was in pain, the others felt it also. It allowed for very spontaneous healing and very effective healing and also very strong community. But when it came to fragmentation, it amplified the experience of being totally violated and ripped apart for every one of them. So this is the experience. This is the first that must be let go. There is a way to do this by going back one step further before the temples blew. Going back a bit further in time to when we first came in. We came in too late. If that could be corrected, we can reverse the imprint in our hologram as far as what has taken place. Now, this is very important because in reversing our hologram as if it never took place, putting in a different series of events into our morphogenetic holographic template, we are recoding the past, literally. We are calling to the fore a different probability which will be in line with a different probable future, and it will release the karmic mess that's between here and there, between the past and the present. It will realign your vector of consciousness to a higher level of evolution from this point forth, the point where you changed it. You can change the past. If it is all a hologram, it is just a series of pictures that aren't even pictures, they're energy signatures. You can shift your focus and orientation to them. We will take you into the experience of recoding the hologram, which is not hard to do. It comes down to remembering the separation between that lower spiral and the higher spiral, the frequencies that feel higher and those that feel lower in any little moment point. We fell into the lower spiral 200,000 years ago. We were not the only ones. Because of it, and because what we did in combination with other people and what they did, the whole planet itself opened on a 10-code pulse, which means the stargates did not open properly. And the people in the consciousness here, henceforth, had become trapped. They have been trapped out of their silicate matrix 12-strand DNA coding. We've been held prisoner here for 200,000 years. Prisoners, psychological prisoners. If we reverse in our personal imprint the original trauma dharma, we will also, piece by piece, each one of us that were there begin to do this, begin to reverse it in the Orifeme race experiential line, which will reach critical mass and then affect the human race experiential line, piece by piece, by restoring the proper way it should have gone to each of our personal incarnational core histories. We can bring the earth grid back into as if that never happened, which means we can clear the race and the planetary karma so this planet can begin to do what it was supposed to do 200,000 years ago, which was go into a full ascension cycle and into matter transmutation and begin to enter its orbit within the fourth dimensional frequencies. That was blocked all those years ago, and we were blocked with it. It's our chance to heal now. And as we work to heal ourselves, we will be helping the planetary grid to heal as well. Excuse me. Now, we'll take our spark of light that is in the center of the temple, and we'll imagine before us that there is a very tall image of a Kathara grid. Now, for those of you who weren't at the course, who do not know what the Kathara grid looks like, it is the image of a tree of life from the Kabbalah, if you know what that is. If not, you don't need to imagine it as clearly. You can simply imagine a pillar of energy that has 12 points on it. That's all you need to imagine there. Now imagine that this Kathara grid, or pillar of energy, is very, very dark in color. It's made out of black particles. And the black particles are shaped like cubes, shiny black cubes. This is what the karmic miasmic imprint looks like when you peel it away from the morphogenetic field. There is a way to reverse the imprint of this by simply, excuse me, there is a way of reversing the karmic miasmic imprint by combining the miasmic Kathara grid with its antiparticle double. It creates fusion and fission and replication on the next highest octave. It reverses the spin of the particles of the karmic miasmic pattern. It changes it within the body. This is a multi-level process, but we will begin with the first core karma, the karma of the temple wars. And we will see ourselves within the temple, for this gives us a locational coordinate, that symbol. See ourselves within the temple. See before us the dark pillar, or the dark Kathara grid. Know that this represents the lower frequency spiral, and that it implies the existence of a higher frequency spiral. What we are going to do is switch vectors from the lower to the higher. We are going to do this by imagining now a pillar of light, bright white, a little bit of silver tint to it. Or imagining, if you're doing the Kathara grid, imagining a Kathara grid made of beautiful white light with silver tints to it. I want you to breathe for a moment and get a little bit of focus on the breath. Then you are going to inhale, and simultaneously, as if one is stationed in each eye, one pillar, light and dark, doesn't matter which side, you're going to breathe them together in the center with the inhale. And you're going to hold the breath for a moment, even a little bit longer than you might normally, but don't suffocate yourself, until you feel a shudder. Because there shall be a shudder when those two images lock, because they're particle-antiparticle composites, scalar waves of the opposite universals. There shall be a shudder in the body that indicates a phase locking of frequency. You've now got the fields bonded. The miasmic field is now bonded to its higher level. The higher level is stronger, is composed of higher frequency. It will be able to override the miasmic pattern. And now, because the core of the miasmic pattern is located deep within the second chakra, down here in the abdomen, below the navel, in the core of the second chakra, you will find this image of the little dark Katara grid. And you will now see that image just like in your temple, phase locking into its opposite of light. And you will begin to feel a vibration of silver energy running through your system, starting down at the second chakra. Begin to feel the vibration, because there will be a jittery little vibration as particle and antiparticle wave spectra encounter each other. There will be a transmutation occurring. Breathe gently. Focus the attention still in the second chakra, the telluric kingdom, the D2, dimension 2 level. That is the core of the core karmic program, where it is locked in and where it's been messed up. It's called the Palladian seal. This is going to be reversed as of this point. But this reversal will come very, very step by step, as modulated by your higher parts, so as to not cause harm to you in your life and not to have your karmic pattern blow up in your face. Right now, you have brought the two Katara grids together and phase locked them. And they will progressively begin a vibration of silver energy that runs through them until they literally dissolve themselves, and there is no more visualization left in that second chakra. It will evaporate itself. That little dark Katara grid in there, in the second chakra, is the Palladian seal. And when the Palladian seal is released from you, you will begin to be able to function normally. You will begin to feel like you just woke up here, like you just arrived. You will begin to go back in time, except what was back there will be now. Where once again you are assigned on a mission to rescue the Amenti portals. And nothing has happened yet. You are just sent in. You may have birthing experiences at the body this time, but do you really? Or are they just part of past hologram you are disassociating with now? When you release the Palladian seal, you are allowing your avatar self to become embodied. To whatever degree you will need the energies and whatever degree the contracts have been already prearranged. As you begin to work with this release of Palladian seal, simply imagine the Katara grids or the pillars of light, the dark and the light coming together in the center of the second chakra. Work with this and let the energy vibration run through you, because you are transmuting particle and antiparticle. When that little itchy vibration spreads out from the second chakra and it'll go out into the cells, you are transmuting waveforms as you go. You are getting rid of the Palladian seal and level upon level upon level of 200,000 years of karmic imprint that is built up on it. It is a simple technique, but it is very powerful. If you work with it, you will find levels of freedom just in your feeling and your emotional body that you have not found in a very long time. And when you feel you are done with the second chakra, move it up to the third and work with that for a while. It may be a few weeks each one. And then up to the fourth. Run it through all of the chakras, but particularly 4, 3, 2, the base chakra. 1 through 4 are the ones primarily affected by the Palladian seal. When this releases, which will do it in stages, you will find freedom. And you will find a gift of information waiting for you that lets you know what your mission now has to do with your mission way back then. Because they are the same missions. You're on the same contract. Whatever it was you were working on back there that got messed up, this is the time to catch the higher spiral. And though it all seems like it took 200,000 years to get this far, in truth all time happens at once. It is just a space between the pieces of your consciousness. That is all. So, as you work with this, you are reclaiming your eternal selves. And you have very special eternal selves to reclaim. I hope you will work with this technique. If you do, it will have a few fringe benefits as well. It will begin the process of activating the 6th and 5th DNA strands more rapidly than they normally would, but not so much that it will harm you. You may start to feel energy running through the soles of your feet, little hot feet sometimes, or through your palms, which if you're working with the Gathara healing is a very good thing. You may start getting some energy surges here and there in the chakras, but it will be nothing harmful to you, and your over-selves will balance it for you. The release of the Palladian seal has been a long, long time coming. Once you become free, you will start to understand more of what that means and the history that's attached to it, and you will start to be able to assist others in releasing theirs. And each person that releases the Palladian seal from their own personal time vector of incarnational projection will release a part of the Earth's seal and distortion on the planetary grids, which will put us in line with a different time vector for a future that does not involve extraterrestrial manipulation, any of this negative stuff. We can shift ourselves out of harm's way by shifting the time vectors, and that's what we're doing. It was very interesting to share with you all. The energy is very strong in this room now. You've learned enough if you can remember a bit of the techniques. And gets any of this or not, your body will respond, and you will find yourself progressively and more actively on your path of higher identity integration, of ascension, or of at least, if you're choosing this time, to leave a body behind, to dying well and going through fully conscious in the process, for it is not that hard. We are getting very late now. I'm surprised no one has been pounding on doors like they usually do here. I will thank you for listening, and we will return you to Anna very soon. I would just like to send one more moment of silence to you, in which there will be a frequency for anyone who would like to receive it. If anyone doesn't, just say simply no to yourself and you will not receive. I'm going to send a transmission through the heart chakra that will assist you in sequencing the incarnational memory levels. So when you get them to come up, they will be less in pieces. Instead of like photographs from many lives thrown in a pile together, you'll start to get piles of photos that went with each trip. So it will be easier to sequence them. It will only take me a moment. And it is a quiet thing. We could use tones, but we do not want to stress the voice too much, as she has got a bit of cold. And that should do. You may feel the effect of that more probably by about 8 o'clock tonight. You may begin to feel heat or funny energy stabilizing in your field because it was an astral transmission. It takes a little bit of time to work itself into the 3D body. And I will say, good afternoon. And if you hear this funny little accent of mine, or if you happen to start getting images in your dreams that have this funny little accent attached to them, why don't you just ask if it's Azara? Because it is one of my specialties. To those who would like to speak with me, I try to deny no one. And I can put my consciousness in many places at many times, all at the same time. So if you would like to open communications, I have served as the first one for many, to get them over to where they could hear their own higher parts. If you would like assistance and guidance, you may call on me in the dream state, and you may call on me in meditation. And you are already all sealed in your channeling processes. So this group is safe. We've done enough energy work, particularly with the Maharic sealing that was done, that right now you could sit next to probably about 50 other people who were not sealed, and because of the resonance in your field from working with the Maharic shield, you would flip them over into sealing, just by contact, without saying a word. So, if you would like to hear me, you are safe to hear me. Simply begin the process of going inward and asking. And eventually you will. We've had very good luck with the New Jersey group. They are hearing us well and taking down small half-hour transmissions of information, which is nothing like 17-hour blocks like we get here. But for any of you that would like that guidance and support, there are numerous ones of us, but I'm very good at modulating frequencies, so I can tend to reach more people than some of the others at the Guardian Alliance. And I will see, I see the door opening and closing. Yes, I will return you to Anna now. And thank you all, and see you perhaps in the dream state tonight, if you should request my company. Thank you. Hi. I'm back. Okay, I missed that. I missed that, and I'm going to find it out on the tape. Okay. Yes?
Yeah. You said the aura thing came in 200,000 years ago, right? What about those of us who came into this earth realm only 75,000 years ago? Are we Orpheum also?
You may have entered, if you're in this room, from what they have said, you can trace your cycles back to 200,000 years ago in the Orpheum race. You wouldn't have been responding to the call of this information if you hadn't. You may have taken breaks between your cycles and re-entered 75,000 years ago, or taken breaks and re-entered on another cycle. But we're going back to the core cycle when you first got involved with the harmonic 1 frequency bands. And from what I was told, that everybody here had that same entry point. That's what drew us together here in this reality at this time. Okay? The Syrians? Well, the Syrians, the Sirius star system is associated with the 6th dimensional frequency bands. Okay? Now, there are higher levels. There was originally something called the Lyran-Syrian imprint, which was, we have something called the Cradle of Lyra. It's part of our stair-step creation, coming down from waveform into pre-matter liquid light substance, where we had our original pattern, which were the Lyrans. Now, there were certain Lyrans that were the founding race, that were the common race that all of the races came out of. Okay? The first coding that began the densities. Some of them went to the Syrian star systems, downscaled their vibration into D6, and they became something called the Anahazi. The Anahazi were the founder race of the D6 Syrians, but they were also, if you upscaled them a few vibrational levels, they were the original Lyran founders race. So they're called the Lyran-Syrian founders race. The Syrian imprint is in everything within this time matrix. It is part of the founding building blocks of the morphogenetic codes that the Cathara grids build on. So we are all connected, and every being in the universe, in this universe anyway, in our 5 harmonics, is connected to the Syrian imprint, the original Lyran-Syrian imprint. The Orpheum happened to be that imprint combined only with the original imprint for the Taurinicium human race, which makes it a very pure version of that coding that was able to carry the capstone codes that go into the Ascended Masters levels. They could bring them down into the gene codes. It's called a double diamond sun matrix, or a green diamond, because there's also some emerald strands thrown in there. So it's a little more than your average 12-strand DNA matrix. So that's where the Syrians fit in. They're part of everybody. And we all have a level of consciousness that corresponds to it. Does that help answer that question? Yeah, it's a big story, because I would have to get into stair-step creation, and I don't have time to do that. I did that in another workshop, but I don't have time to do it in this one. So, in fact, I don't think I have time to do a whole lot more. Okay, it's Oraphim. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, is there any other questions? Nope. Did you all enjoy those experiences?
Yes.
Good. Thanks. How about Azara? Did you like talking to Azara? She makes me real nervous when she does that because I'll have to watch the videotape to find out what she did.
How can we get those videos right away? How can we get these videos of this week?
We're going to have to ask him right there because he's making them.
Okay.
I probably have to wait until he gets them done. Then I don't know if they have to be reformatted and then get them to me, and then we usually have somewhere in Florida that reproduces them for us, so then we can sell them. So it's a little bit of a process. You know, we don't have them available right here because we have to have them dubbed and that kind of thing. But within the next couple of weeks, they'll be ready.
Oh, good.
Sure, and if anybody wants, we can send you out, like, the new product list will have those on. If you want to order them, you can.
Yes, we
Okay. I'm going to try over here. I already answered one of yours right now. Okay. I'm sorry?
About reagents,
Yes.
you said about reagents, you have to receive from reagents. That
Yeah.
means everybody have received reagents?
Yeah.
Can you explain because
That would again be another one. I think I've touched on this before. The Palladian seal was something that came out of an agreement between the Syrians and the Palladians about 150,000 years ago when the mess from 200,000 years ago was getting so bad that they tried to fix it by breaking down the way the Cathar grid worked. And it created a literal donut in time where it amplified the heck out of the karmic pattern instead of helping to clear it like it was intended to do. So that's where the Palladian seal came from. It was an amplification of the mess that started 200,000 years ago. Okay, if I go too much further into it, we'll be into another workshop. Yes.
I have a question in regard to Azara said she would come to us in our dreams in terms of the kind of question that she would answer. And I'm wondering, would she get into just plain old 3D issues? Because I could use some help on manifesting something. And if she will help me, I would like her to do it.
I'll tell you something about Azara. She did for the one lady down in New Jersey. She was great. She gave her a technique for manifesting stuff. And they started to play with the technique, her and her friends. And the one guy applied it to getting lottery numbers. And he had two sets of numbers, one at the top of the page, one at the bottom, and he had focused on getting the lottery numbers. He didn't focus on getting the money from the lottery numbers. Okay? Use the technique that Azar gave, and used it, I heard, for about a month. Yeah, just putting energy into it, doing meditation on it, about 2 hours a day, and then leaving it go. He got the numbers, but he had two sets written on the paper, and he pulled the wrong one when he went to buy the ticket. And when he came back and heard the numbers, God, they sound familiar, and he looked, it was the other set of numbers. And she pointed out that in manifesting, you must be very, very specific. Yeah, because you will probably get what you ask for. So hone it well. Okay, she will work with you on very simple issues. Everything from helping you through relationships that are having karmic stuff happening in them, to if you are ready to begin learning to be a data translator. And believe me, be careful what you ask for. I mean, you can always say no, and I can always say no, but once you get hooked on getting information with the speed of light and incredible detail and accuracy, it's very hard to give it up, because you feel clueless once you do. She will help you to develop the abilities to do that. Azara has wanted for a number of years to write a series of books called The Teachings of Azara, but we haven't had time because we're too busy with our other contracts. So they wouldn't be channeled books. They would be given the same way the Voyagers books are. You would have telepathic communication at times. More often, you would end up with symbol code translation, like email. It would be put into symbol codes and put into your auric field, and then later you would open it up, and it would be a bunch of information. And after a while, you'd start to sense that it had the Azara feeling behind it, that kind of thing. So she won't do channel because she doesn't endorse it too much. Once in a while, for special occasions, we'll do it. But it's much better to do email. She will work with you in that capacity if you really want to, and if it's good for you and part of your soul plan to do so. Okay, but she will help in whatever way she can. And she is really beyond a she. She's using her presenting image as the last self that she was before she ascended, which was a female Turanicium from Tara, who was an ascension teacher. She is a gestalt of consciousness that is beyond gender and male and female. It is a collective of consciousness that's part of the Ra Confederacy and the Melchizedek Cloister. So you're dealing with an entity, a large entity, that has many facets, and it will communicate with you with a part of its own facets that most resonate to you. So you may find some other ones coming through saying, Azara sent me. Okay? It will be other portions of the same identity saying, you know, I'm better at this. This is my specialization, and you want to develop this, so that, you know, Azara sent me in. And there will be a field, and they will make sure you're protected. They're not going to let something come in and say, I'm Azara when I'm not. They're not going to let you do, you know, anything mess with you that way. Plus, you're already running current to the point where that would be very unlikely if it would take anyway. So does that answer your question as far as what Azara gets into?
Oh, yes.
Okay, she's fun. She went skiing with us, believe it or not. I'll tell you, I got to tell you this, just really, really, really fast. When she went skiing, we didn't know how to ski at all. Bonnie did not know how to ski. And her up on top of an expert slope accidentally. And thinking of definitely walking down the sides. Yes, we're going to walk it. Just, no. Comes through, and it's the only time she ever really merged into full body. Did this huge series of very, very fast mathematical calculations that went everywhere from angles of projection and you know, the whole bit. Total mathematical calculation of scoping out the slope, adjusting the body the right way. You know, kind of, you know, we're sitting on the body going, oh boy, she's better at this than we are. And we had to run down the slope without getting harmed. And after that, we didn't turn into an expert skier. She did 3 runs with us, running the body. She set a pattern where at least we can function. We can be taken to a ski slope and not embarrass ourselves to death. So Azara can do amazing things. She also grabbed the steering wheel when I was about to have an accident with 3 kids in the car once. So she's a nice buddy to have around. Okay. Okay, hi. We're coming. Okay, yeah, John's back there, and he would like his room back. So I guess it's time to leave. Thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. This is very spontaneous for me. Sure. Thank you.